For nearly a century, a veterans memorial has stood at the top of New Jersey, allowing visitors to view much of the eastern United States. Surrounded by the state park of the same name in Kittatinny Ridge, New Jersey's High Point Monument has stood for nearly a century, despite several years of construction issues and various state legislative attacks. These days, it's a tourist attraction centering on a reminder of the state's heroes. Despite this, the state government recently targeted the monument in the name of budgetary sacrifices, leading to its near condemnation and demise. And yet despite that, the monument still stands strong. Today, we discover New Jersey's High Point Monument. I'm your host Ryan Socash, and you're watching It's History. This is an amazing monument, climbing up the 291 circular steps of bedrock and granite. Visitors can view the sights of Pennsylvania's Pocono Mountains, the Catskill Mountains of New York, and New Jersey's own Wallkill River Valley from 220 feet above the ground. Throughout its 100-year history, the High Point Monument has centered around its home state, whether it be through its sponsors, its physical materials, and its continued legacy. The story really starts in 1923 when Colonel Anthony R. Cusar donated a massive amount of land for public recreational use to the state. Additionally, it was proposed that a portion of the land could be used as a tuberculosis sanatorium, specifically for World War I veterans, utilizing the fresh air for rehabilitative purposes. The then governor of New Jersey, George Sebastian Silzer, was under pressure to keep the state moving, as his Republican opponents had put the legislature in a deadlock over committee size matters. So the governor approved using Colonel Cusar's funds to establish the state park. In the Perth Amboy Evening News on January the 30th, 1923, the funding of this project was described as being a priority for the government, stating, quote, "This matter is to be given early attention as it is regarded as some of the finest benefactions New Jersey ever has received." Before the announcement of the colonel's generous donation, the area was unpopular with tourists and out-of-state visitors, but New Jersey locals were familiar with the space. Hence, lawyer Wayne DeMont, a local celebrity, ran the park's commission. And so it was. High Point State Park was officially opened on May the 23rd, 1923, with the dedication attended by the colonel, the governor, and the future governor of New Jersey, Walter Evans Edge. By late 1927, the colonel and his wife offered to fund the construction of a monument in the park. Well, there had been previous associations with soldiers. The memorial proposal was the initial point of explicitly honoring New Jersey's veterans with a landmark. Governor Harry Moore accepted the offer and construction began the following summer. When building the High Point Monument, there were many construction issues. First, the plan was to utilize only local, all New Jersey materials, but this did not come to fruition for budgetary reasons. Despite this, the $500,000 project aimed to use New Jersey's materials when possible. The composition of the materials, combined with the local weather conditions, slowed down construction considerably. High winds and stiff bedrock made construction extremely slow at some points, as workers frequently had to stop and resharpen their tools because the materials were so hard. Unfortunately, the colonel passed away just over a year before the monument's completion on February the 8th, 1923. He was 67 years old. Be that as it may, the High Point Monument was completed in the summer of 1930, with its dedication monument held on June the 21st of that same year. The 2,000 guests included the colonel's son, who had since become a state senator, and presented the monument on behalf of his late father. In his address, the young senator stressed the monument's commitment to the heroes of the state and that it exists as a physical reminder of the efforts and sacrifices veterans have made. The senator began his political career shortly before his father donated the land for High Point. But perhaps his most impactful contribution in office was establishing the bill to officially make the eastern goldfinch the state bird of New Jersey in 1935. His political career was relatively short, serving as state senator for only 6 years. Still, like his father, he focused on the culture and natural beauty of New Jersey. Although the High Point Monument's early history had many ties to the state government, including multiple governors, their relationship was not always positive. By the turn of the 21st century, the High Point Monument required much physical renovation. In other words, it was costing the state money, hence attitudes began to shift, and the state, surprisingly, decided to attempt to charge the veterans who gathered for their annual memorial services in 2006. Through legal action and support from former lawmakers, the veterans did not have to pay fees to use the space, which was dedicated to them and fully intended to honor their service. 2 years later, New Jersey continued struggling financially, to the point that then-Governor John Corzine proposed to close the entire High Point Park and 8 other local parks to save money in maintaining the space and paying employees, marking a very significant departure in terms of how the government was to handle the space. You see, the intervening former lawmakers had been instrumental in continuing state funds to renovate High Point. For example, former Senator Robert Littell specifically secured $2 million for exterior and $1.5 million for interior costs, completed in 2001 and 2005 respectively. These efforts led to continued budgetary support specifically for High Point, even if the monument had been in the process of extreme restoration since as early as 1995. Perhaps one fault is the fact that High Point is not located near Trenton, the capital city of New Jersey, so it lacks the same number of visitors as its more urban counterparts. A sentiment best described by historian Ron DuPont, who explained, quote, "Parks are always the first thing to take a hit, partly because they've never really had an effective advocacy group, and they are usually running on empty as far as staffing, funding, and manpower." Although it was brought to the public's attention in the 2000s following pushback from the veteran community, state officials had spent years proposing the park's closure during the end of the 20th century. Public outrage and media attention came in 2008 due to the blatant disrespect for the veteran community and the disregard for High Point's message from the state. The proposal would have closed the space to the public on July 1st, 2008, whereas other plans for current construction would have it continued. It needed to be clarified what the fate of the physical monument would have been, especially were maintenance to cease. During this whole controversy, the internal monument was not open due to construction, so its fate was confusing to the public. As it would turn out, this was all part of a greater plan to dissolve the state's agriculture department, which further shows that the New Jersey state government has completely strayed away from the Colonel's original message of opening the beautiful space to the public and honoring New Jersey's veteran community. Governor Corzine was unsuccessful in his proposal, as veterans protested and used legal action to preserve the park and monument. The budgetary plan was overturned in combined efforts with legislative allies, and High Point remained open. This measure also saved New Jersey's Department of Agriculture. Even outside the park itself, the Colonel's family legacy remains, preserving and honoring the agriculture of New Jersey. Today, the High Point Monument still stands, open seasonally for the interior and year-round for the entire park. The veteran community has continued to identify with the memorial. In 2019, the park was officially renamed High Point State Park and New Jersey Veterans Memorial, emphasizing the space's commitment to honoring the community. And now, thousands visit High Point yearly, whether for recreational purposes, in the park, or to keep the state's veterans' memory alive. And as someone whose grandfather was a World War II veteran from New Jersey, I can only hope that the preservation efforts will prevail. And we'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button And until next time, this is Ryan Sokash signing off.